I'm Trevor Turner. Once lost, now living on purpose. I know what it's like to feel locked out of your own potential. This show is for the ones who are ready to take their power back and write a new story, 1 hour at a time. You can do it. You can do anything, and you don't need permission. That's why I started the free hour, to give people the space to change their story, to remind them you are not your past, you are not your mistakes, you are not done, you are powerful. You can find freedom, you can find yourself, and you decide what happens next. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the free hour. It's your boy Trevor Turner, and we are back with another video. We are back with another episode in our free hour ABCs, the ABCs of Tree. And today we are looking at another episode of our emotional intelligence series. This is the series where we learn how to understand ourselves on a deeper level so that we can move through life with clarity, so that we can move through life with stability, so that we can learn how to deal with, how to understand, how to manage our own emotions, and we can also learn how to navigate the emotions of others. And today, we're going to be asking the question, how much of your emotional life is really yours? And how much is inherited where you came from? Today, we're going to be on the letter K, and we're going to be talking about knowing yourself fully. Because knowing yourself is the foundation of emotional intelligence. Many times we go through life with baggage that we don't even know we have. We go through life with triggers that we don't even know we have. And we need to find those things. We need to unpack those things. We need to understand those things. And the root of getting that is knowing where they came from. See, for me, I think it was the time that I realized that I was going to start emulating my pops in a lot of ways. Where was the moment that I realized that I didn't really know my emotions because I hadn't done the work. My pops had a lot of anger problems, especially when it came to his relationship, not only with us, but his relationship with my moms. And I think when I started realizing that I was emulating a lot of those things in my relationships, and I was literally emulating a gesture, like I was imitating a gesture that he did, because he would always clench his fists and like lower them and like try to take a breath to calm down, but you could see that it wasn't working with him. And I had done the exact same thing, and I realized like, damn, I don't know how to deal with my own emotions in a healthy way. Now, this was before I had started, my own journey or whatever, and I kind of had realized that. But now that I know that we can inherit emotions through our childhood experiences, now that I know that we can inherit things from people that we've dealt with, I've come a long way in knowing myself. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because knowing yourself is the foundation of emotional intelligence. You can't manage what you don't understand. And this builds upon a lot of the things that we've been talking about when it comes to awareness. Understanding why we feel the way that we feel, getting to the primary emotions that lie underneath things like our anger or our jealousy or our sadness. This is about getting back to our power in dealing with our own emotions. Getting back to balance, equanimity, inner peace, all of those things. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why self-knowledge is emotional power. Most people aren't reacting to the moment that they're in. They're reacting to a moment from years ago. One of the things that I had to learn, and we learned this in our classes that I facilitate, and when I was going through the classes and learning about them, is that we carry around a lot of these things. In the video that I was watching, the lesson that I was learning, he called them blue beads. Blue beads for men, pink beads for women. And he was talking about especially in relationships. And basically it was 2 mugs. It was filled to the brim with these different beads. And what happened is that when there was friction, when there was collision, when there was conflict, the beads would fly out and spill out. And a lot of the times what would happen, and we parallel these things in our relationships, is that we blame the other person for these things coming out. Look what you made me do. Look what you made come out of me. Look what you brought out of me. You're pushing my buttons and all these different things, right? But the fact that those beads even come out, the fact that that baggage is there is because it was already there to begin with. It is something that you were carrying from an experience that happened before. It could be years before. It could be decades before. It could have been yesterday. But a lot of times what happens is that when we are triggered, it is not actually by the moment that we are in. It's not actually by the situation that we are in. It's not actually by the person that you call your significant other now. It's by something that happened in your past. It's an issue that you haven't unpacked. It's an issue that you haven't dealt with. It's something that you don't know about yourself. It's like walking through a minefield when you don't even know it's a minefield. And Dr. Daniel Goleman, Harvard University, author of Emotional Intelligence, self-awareness is the first and most important component of emotional intelligence. People with high self-awareness recognize emotional patterns and adjust in real time. Without self-awareness, the rest of emotional intelligence collapses. You can't manage what you don't know. It's not even about being able to understand yet, but it's about knowing who you are, knowing what you've dealt with, knowing what you come with, knowing where you come from when it comes to your emotional state. That helps you kind of put together the pieces of the puzzle and navigate life in a better and more stable way. Dr. Dan Siegel, UCLA, Interpersonal Neurobiology, the window of tolerance expands as people understand their emotional triggers. Self-knowledge creates emotional stability. Knowing yourself widens the emotional space where you can think clearly. Look, if you know what triggers you, even if you walk into a situation that looks, feels, smells, sounds, and tastes exactly the same way as that situation did before, you're going to walk into it on a more balanced footing. You're going to walk into it with more of a threshold for being able to hold yourself in that stable mode, being able to hold yourself in that positive mode. That's what's going to happen. If you walk into it not knowing that this is a trigger, it's going to trigger you in a more profound way. Because look, you can't heal what you can't name. You respond better when you understand your own patterns. It's about the difference between walking around with a gaping wound. It's the difference between walking around with a wound with a Band-Aid over it. It's the difference between walking around with a wound with stitches in it. And it's the difference between walking around with a scar from the stitches, the aftercare, all the infection treatment, seeing the doctor regularly to check up on it, doing your therapy, knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing your situations. That scar is going to be much harder to open. You're going to recognize that this is something similar to what caused that scar, but that scar is much harder to open than the wound that's still festering, than the one that just has a Band-Aid over it, because it's going to feel like ripping the Band-Aid off of it, than the one that is still healing. You're going to know yourself better, and you can respond better when you understand your own patterns. So what emotions in your life keep showing up wearing different faces? One of the things that I was asking myself to get ready for this video is, what emotions am I dealing with on a regular basis that I haven't really talked about yet? What emotions and emotional patterns was I dealing with before I recognized them? And I think for me, when I got down to it, when I was working on this video, the emotion that I deal with on a regular basis is loneliness. It's loneliness that leads to a sadness and emptiness, a feeling like I have a void that I need to fill. And I looked at what that caused with my emotional patterns before, when I didn't really recognize it. And it led to me chasing after some of the most vile, toxic, unhealthy situations, whether that's intimate relationships, friendships, the group of people I hung around, what I wanted to be, who I emulated, my role models, because of that loneliness. And before I knew that that was the cause of me chasing all of these things, all of these different validations, all of these different situations, all of these different toxic situationships, whatever you want to call them, before I knew that it was the loneliness that was getting me there, it was harder for me to recognize why I was the common denominator in all of these terrible, terrible situations. I kept blaming everybody else. I kept blaming all these females that I was finding. Why do I keep finding all these bad females? Why do I keep gravitating towards all of these, people who commit crimes and do drugs and all of these different things, right? Why is it that every city I go to, I end up running with the crowd of people that sell drugs, that use drugs, that gangbang, that do all of these different things? Like, I'm not even from this city that I live in now, but I know a lot of people who are engaged in those activities, and I found them very quickly. Once I changed myself and I recognized the loneliness and I recognized that need to fill that gap with my things like my support system, things like my family ties, things like the personal connections that provide me with those good feelings and good validations, once I recognized the strong need for that, I was able to steer it in a different way. Now I know people who are involved in things like academics. Now I know people who are business owners. Now I know people who are involved in things like politics and nonprofits and helping people and giving back to the community, because I recognized, I found, and I realized where these things were coming from, where my emotional patterns were coming from, and it was loneliness. It was a loneliness that came from having a family that I felt like I wasn't a part of. It was a loneliness that came from being in an area where I didn't fit in. I've never fit in with anybody because I'm not fully one way. I'm not fully this way. I'm not fully that way. Like, yeah, I have sold drugs. Yes, gang member. Yes, all of those different things. But yes, I'm also all of these other things. Yeah, I love playing the video games. Yes, I love playing things like Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, I love anime. I love comic books. I love dressing up. I love all of that stuff. Those things weren't meshing well in my group of friends, because here's what was going on. That loneliness was causing me to find fragmented pieces of each of these groups of people and going fully and going all out to connect with the first group of people I found, instead of waiting for the right group of people. That's why it's important. So let's talk about identity. Let's talk about emotional patterns. Your reactions are messages from parts of yourself that you haven't met yet. When you are going into situations and you start to feel your chest tightening up and you start to feel that familiar feeling that you felt before, but it's with a new person, or it's with a new situation, or it's with something that doesn't look like what happened before, that's messages from yourself that you haven't met yet. Dr. James Clear, Identity-Based Change. Identity drives behavior more than willpower. People who understand their emotional identity have stronger emotional control. And one of the things that I realized, especially when it comes to relationships, especially when it comes to dealing with the opposite sex, when I realized that it was my identity that was holding me back and not situations, not every situation, right? Was when I realized that I was the common denominator in all of my interactions. I realized that I was a common denominator in all of my relationships. I realized that I was the common denominator in every single situation that I was putting myself into, right? I'll be out in public and I won't want to go approach somebody. I'll be on dating apps and I won't want to pursue somebody to the fullest. I'll date somebody and I won't allow myself to be vulnerable, right? I'll be in a full-fledged relationship and that other person still feels like I'm hiding something. It's not the fact that I'm lying to them. It's just the fact that I haven't fully opened up yet. And the reason is because I was secretly viewing myself as not good enough. Still to this day. I was looking at myself as not good enough for the person that I was with because I was still holding on to that old identity. That old identity wasn't good enough. That old identity wasn't even serving me. So I looked at that old identity in and of itself as not good enough. As something I can't carry forward with me. As something that is not going to serve me, right? But the shreds of that old identity, myself, the things that I've done, my past, the things that I've gone through, my traumas, which includes all the healing that I've done, which includes all of the work. I tried to separate it in a different way instead of learning it, instead of knowing it. I just tried to cut it off. And what happens is that it prevents me from pursuing the things that I am trying to step into. I am trying to step into healthy relationships, but that identity, I'm not good enough. I wasn't good enough before. I'm still that person though. So I'm not looking at myself as good enough to walk into and deal with these people. You know, people are trying to link me with, people who are involved in politics and business owners and all of these different things. And I'm hesitant to reach out because deep down inside, because I didn't know myself, I was not allowing myself to get into the room because I really felt like I didn't deserve to be in that room. The identity I was carrying with me wasn't the person that deserved to be in that room. What happened was, this is tying back to my environment. This is tying back to the fact that I never really fit in with everybody. This is tying back to the fact that I I never really gravitated towards any group of people. Like, I don't have a lot of friends. I don't got a lot of people I can count on. I don't got a lot of people who view me as this, that, or whatever. But I was forgetting the fact that the people I do got call me their brother. The people I do got call me their uncle. The people I do got call me all of these different things. But that loneliness that I wasn't addressing was becoming my identity. And I was trying to make every excuse for it. I was trying to say that I wasn't good enough for these people. I was walking into the wrong spaces, this, that, whatever, and the third, right? Instead of just saying that I wasn't addressing it, I wasn't realizing it, I wasn't recognizing it. And that even comes as something that happened recently, where I wasn't reaching out to somebody that I was given, a contact information by, and the person, gave their permission about it. They heard about me and they said, we'll link up with this young man. And I didn't reach out. And I tried to put every excuse. I'm going through this. I was going through the breakup. I was having, balance issues with the new job, and, school was difficult. And I was every single excuse, instead of just getting to the fact that I didn't think that I was good enough. Self-awareness leads to self-respect. Once I started realizing that this is where this is coming from, once I started realizing that I was holding on to that identity, I'm able to address it. Let's talk about some practical ways to know yourself better. How do we actually get to know ourselves emotionally? Let's talk about identifying emotional triggers. Journal the moments that you react the fastest. One of the things we talk about is we talk about proactivity, right? We talk about putting that space between your stimulus and your response. It's about being able to respond instead of react, because when you react, that's because you've been triggered. When you react, it's because something hits you and it strikes a nerve. Just like they do that reaction test with the doctor, and they feel when you have your muscle contraction based upon impact on your leg or whatever. It's when those things hit you and you react, or when the feeling comes, or when the tightness comes, or when you start breathing hard, or when you clench up. After you're done with that situation, I want you to journal about it. I want you to journal about what your reaction was, what your cues were, what led to it, what the situation was, what that person said, what that person did, what they looked like. And I want you to think about how this ties back to something that happened in the past. Ask yourself why. Go back to like when you were a kid, when you were 4, 5, 6 years old, and you just kept asking why. And they give you a little bit. Why? They give you a little bit more. Why? They give you a little bit more. Until they finally say, look, I don't know, or they get to the source of it. Keep asking why. Name your emotional first language. Are you quick to anger? Are you quick to silence? Are you quick to avoidance? Defensiveness? Or do you shut down? Do you lash out with physical violence? Do you take that step back, get non-confrontational, get passive aggressive? Do you instigate things? Do you use humor? What is it that you use? What is your first emotional language? And then ask why. Why do you go that route? Why do you do what you do? Why is this and then also recognize when you start using that first language. Why am I resorting to my native emotional language in this situation? Why is this situation the one that's bringing me to this? Why is this situation the one that's bringing me to that? Why is this situation bringing me out of myself, bringing me out of my prefrontal cortex and into my amygdala? And listen to your body. Your body reacts before your thoughts. Think about the cues that you have when you get into things like anger or sadness. Think about those cues. Think about what your body does. Think about where your body goes. Well, do you clench your teeth? Do you clench your fists? Do you start wanting to cry? Do you get that little lump in your throat? Do your legs start shaking? Do your palms get sweaty? Do you get sweaty under your armpits? What is it that happens to you, to your body? Write that down. Remember that. Think about that. So that way you can listen to those cues. And then when those cues hit, ask why. Why am I feeling like this? Why is my body going through these things? Why am I dropping into fight or flight when there's no bear in the room? Recognize who might be that bear for you. Because one of the things that happens is that we learned about the fact that, and Dr. Nadine Burke Harris talked about this in a TED Talk about adverse childhood experiences. She talked about the fact that fight or flight is good when there is a bear in the woods and you need to get away from it or fight for your life or whatever the case. But the problem is that for a lot of us, that bear comes home every day. We're dealing with that bear every single day. What is bringing you back to having to deal with that bear? And what was the bear for you when you were a kid? Your body is your first emotional home. And let's talk about the transformation of knowing yourself. When you know yourself, you stop abandoning yourself. Dr. Kristen Neff, self-compassion, understanding your own emotions leads to more compassion, less shame, and healthier choices. People who know themselves emotionally build stronger relationships and handle conflict better. How this happened for me was not only finding that person that I was trying to leave behind, like it didn't contribute to who I was and it wasn't contributing to who I thought my identity was, instead of addressing it, instead of knowing it. I had to tie this back into the free hour because showing up for that 1 hour, it forced me to face who I was and who I wanted to become. Because it's not an either or. Who I was is leading to who I'm becoming. Because who I was, in a lot of ways, is the obstacle to who I'm becoming. It's that baggage that I'm carrying with me. But I'm trying to jump over hurdles, and you can't do that with luggage. I'm trying to get around, and I'm trying to navigate all this difficult, brand new terrain, and I can't do that while I'm carrying all these bags. I can't do that while I'm carrying all these identity issues. I can't do that while I'm carrying this lack of self-confidence for these unknown situations. I can't do that. Until I know myself, I address myself, and I unpack those issues. What part of you needs your attention the most right now? You can't grow in the person you want to be while ignoring the person that you are. A lot of us just try to leave that person behind. But the thing about it is that you have to change into the person you want to become. You can't throw off your old identities like discarded, like it's a sleeve, like it's the outer. Your body is the outer, your identity is the inner. You have to change it. You have to work on it. You have to tweak it. You have to give it the attention. You have to pour into it to make it into the identity that you want. And you can't become what you want ignoring what you are, what you started with. You can't overestimate your day one. You have to realize where it is that you're coming from. You have to realize what it is that you're working with, your strengths, your talents, and the things that work against them, your weaknesses. Those all create the sum total of who you are now. If you want to become somebody new, you have to take those parts and create something new out of it. You have to create those parts and that ship and steer it towards a new direction. You can't just abandon that ship and go get a brand new ship. That's not how that works. It's not going to last. It doesn't equal out to emotional stability, because that's when you start to have those triggers and you don't even realize where they're coming from. Damn, the new person that I am doesn't react like that in these relationships. The old person did. You're forgetting that you still carry those things with you. You're forgetting that you still live that life. Just because you were trying to break the cycle, and just because you were trying to step into a new life and step into a new persona and a new person, you can't escape the fact that you already lived that life. You already lived that 20, 30, 40 years. You already lived that. You need to address it, and you need to deal with it. You need to work on it. Self-awareness is greater than emotional guessing. Get to the bottom of it. Identity is greater than impulse. Who you are dictates how you respond. And in a lot of ways, we've done that already because we have thought about the person that we want to become. We have created our own little constitutions, right? Based upon some of our readings, based upon some of the activities that we've done. We have used our free hour to create new habits that come from new identities, right? Our identity is greater than our impulse, because our impulse might be to react in a new way. But if we haven't addressed our identity fully, we will still fall back on those old things. Understanding is greater than reacting. Pause, put that space before responding. Understand why you feel the way that you feel before you just react off of why you feel that way. And compassion is greater than shame. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. A lot of times what happens is that, yes, our choices are our choices. but those choices were shaped by who we were created to be. And who we were created to be is often the sum of our environment and what was poured into us. If we don't address those things, we will never be able to expand the choices that we got. Because life is a constant series of choices, forked roads, multiple choice questions, whatever you want to call them, right? But the thing is, if you don't address your identity, if you don't address what you're carrying with you, if you don't address what you were raised to be or what you were created to be, then you won't have all of the best options. It's like when you're trying to unlock your character and you're trying to put skill points into these different things. You can't fully equip yourself. You're limited to what you got. That's why you need to understand it and then have compassion for it. Give yourself grace. Forgive yourself for some of the choices that you made. Forgive yourself for holding on to something that you shouldn't have held on to. Forgive yourself for not serving yourself, and don't shame yourself for it. Don't judge yourself so harshly. When you really know yourself, your emotions stop controlling you and start guiding you. Here's what I want you to do. Spend one day tracking your triggers, reactions, and emotions. That's your first step to emotional self-knowledge. Look, the more you know yourself, the more your life makes sense. The more you realize why you made the choices that you made allows you to make different choices. It's about not only have we taken back power by saying like, look, these are my choices. I have the capability to make different choices. But now we're working on why we default to the options we default to, why we only see certain options, why we only see certain ways to go about things. Because when we look at the way other people handle things, we go, damn, I didn't even think about that. That didn't even cross my mind. This is about knowing why that happens, about being able to unlock and open up those new avenues, those new options, those new areas of our map. All right? And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something from this. I hope you're able to learn yourself and know yourself. Let me know something that you did this week during your free hour to help you learn about yourself, your identity that you're carrying with you, your triggers you're carrying with you, and how that's going to open up some new options for you. All right? Like, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know how you're doing with your free hour. All right? It's your boy Tree. Deuces.